Welcome to My Time to Shine. I'm your host, Emily.
Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Today I have a extra special guest. Not only is he my best friend, my rock, my lover, the father to my children, my baby daddy, and my husband. Here he is, Jack.
Oh, was it a little introduction? Thank you, my love. It's very good to be on the podcast.
Oh,
How's it
it's
going?
so cute. It's so cute to have you on. I just want to give insight to our listeners as to our setup right now. So I am in my office and Jack is literally next door in his office because this is the only configuration I have at the moment for this podcast. How does it feel
And it
to be
works.
so close but so far away?
Well, I think that, I can very, very, very slightly hear you. But it is weird. I just feel like I'm in a meeting, but I know you're literally just over there.
We were thinking
Yeah.
to do it in person, but just not set up for that yet. But in the future, guys, watch out. That's going to come. So
And
for
we've
our
never
listeners,
communicated this way, have we? So,
no, we
we
haven't.
just talk face to face. Yeah.
We do, which is if I feel a bit weird. But for our listeners, would you like to give yourself a little introduction as to what you do, or a brief
Yeah, of
overview?
course. Yeah, well, first of all, I really thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
It's okay.
Secondly, my name's Jack, as you said. So mainly what I do is I work in technology. So I work as a software developer, as a solutions architect. No one knows what that is, but basically it's drawing pretty pictures of how software interacts and stuff like that. So I've been doing that for been about 5 years now. I've done some training as well on the side in the same field. Helping people who are getting into tech, um, kickstart their careers essentially as well. I've done quite a bit of that. And I really enjoy it. I've got to say, I've done many different jobs in my life. Some awful jobs, some slightly less awful jobs, but I've really found something that I enjoy, which is a lovely thing to say. I don't take that for granted because, you know, not everyone can find the career and the job that they enjoy. So I'm very lucky, really, and I do really enjoy it. So yeah.
I want to go back to the start. I want to share our listeners because we have been on, a bit of a journey together. And if anyone, has been the biggest inspiration in my life, it's been you. And you have glowed up in, the biggest sense of the term, not just your career, but also how you present yourself to the world, your inner confidence, and how you show up as a husband and a father. And if we can take a reverse, go right back to the start to when we first met, and then share your journey from then. So, we first met just over 7 years ago. Where were you in that point in terms of what you did in your career and self-confidence wise and as a man, how did you feel?
Well, that's very sweet you saying all that, my love. That's really, really lovely. Thank you. That's very, very nice of you to say. To answer your question, what career? I didn't have a career. I didn't have anything really. So I just graduated. Well, in fact, I didn't. I effectively dropped out of uni. I studied psychology at Aston University in Birmingham, and as you may or may not be able to tell, I'm not from Birmingham. I've got a kind of weird Scousey sort of accent. I'm from the Wirral originally, but then I moved to Birmingham for uni, and then I think I was in my third year, I think, when we met. But yeah, I basically just dropped out. I wasn't really motivated to complete it, really. And where I was at in my life then was worlds apart from where I'm at now. Um, I was a bit of a loser, to put it quite frankly, you know, not to shy away from it. I had a job which was, so we were both vegan at the time. We probably spoke about this in other podcasts, how you were vegan, but we were both vegan. We met when we were vegan, and I worked in a vegan cafe, and I was a dog's body. I wasn't doing any fancy cooking or nothing like that. I was just a dog's body, really. And the strange thing about it was that that was kind of my ceiling at the time. I didn't even consider, honestly, I didn't even consider doing anything else or aspiring to do anything else. I just saw that as my My ceiling, I enjoyed cycling. I was fairly fit, but I was, if you saw a photo of me back then and me now, I was, a lot skinnier, for example. And that's not just because of veganism. That was just a manifestation of the kind of person I was. Very weak and very feeble and a bit of a wimp, to be honest. A bit of a wimp and a bit of a loser. Didn't have much going for myself. So I don't know what you saw in me, to be honest, Emily. But, you know, we are where we are, and I'm very grateful that's the case. And it was like that. And then we met. And then a whole other life started, really. I had something to fight for. So, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, like you were literally the dog's body when we first met. Like, you were closing up the shop and doing all the hoovering, and like people were telling you what to do to clean the chairs, and not that that's a bad thing because everyone has to go through that. But I emphasize this point because of how hard you've worked to become the person that you are now, and to encourage all of our listeners out there who maybe they feel a bit stuck right now, maybe they're in their dog's body job, and that you can get out of it. It does take a certain amount of graft, which we'll go into, but you don't just get handed your dream job on a silver platter. So at that point when we first met, I want to share as well that there were a couple of situations where we went out and there were some, rowdy, rambunctious people around us who were quite intimidating. And I felt scared, but I felt not safe with you. I felt like you couldn't protect me at the time. And I remember we were doing some exercise together because we did quite a lot of yoga at the time as well. I was a yoga teacher and we were very into that and very into veganism. And I was always into fitness with my background, and I could squat you, but you couldn't lift me up.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's quite stark when you put it like that, isn't it? Because obviously men and women come in all different shapes and sizes, but I'm not by much, we're both midgets, but I'm slightly taller than you. Your listeners won't know that we're midgets because they don't see us stand up, but we are midgets. That's just the secret's out now. But yeah, I was just weak. I could cycle, and I cycled actually because really I cycled to work, and that's how I started cycling. But I used to do Deliveroo as well. I used to cycle around delivering food. More of that came later, but um yeah, I just wasn't really. I didn't have my priorities straight at all. I didn't have anything to fight for. But then as soon as I felt the love from you, and as soon as I had something to fight for, that was the catalyst for a massive change, really. And it's not like you forced me to do anything because you didn't. You really didn't. You met me where I was at, and through your love and through our, the nurturing of our relationship, a lot did change, obviously, because that's where I am now. But we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves. We'll take we'll take the
Take
journey
it
and go through
slow.
the. Yeah, we'll take it slow. But yeah, that is very shocking. Pointing out that fact particularly, it shows
Yeah.
not just a physical weakness, but it's mental, it's spiritual, it's everything. It's all at the same time.
Yeah, it's all
Um,
encompassing. And spiritually, where we were then, we were very much into yoga. Like, I did a lot of stuff with crystals and tarot and all this kind of witchy stuff, which is again totally contrasting to the way we are today, which we'll come into as well. So let's not get too ahead. But I remember as well that time having, like, being a very ambitious person myself. Again, this is so interesting to share with our listeners because it's really flipped as well now. I remember sitting down and saying, like, look, if this is going to work, we need to be brutally honest with each other. And as the bossy cow that I am, I was like, you need to step up, you need to man up, or this is not going to work. And I was very brutally honest. And that's that's who I am. I just come out with it. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. We're not going to drag it on. And we had a few conversations at a few places in our very early relationship where it was like, okay, I'm very ambitious. I'm going to head in this way. If you're not going to come with me, it's not going to work. And every time that happened, you stepped up a notch. And to me, it was like, oh, he actually does really care about me. He does want to achieve something in his life. He didn't just dwell on it and, you know, sulk about it. You kind of took it on on your chin, didn't take it too personally, and actually did something with that.
Yeah, there was many occasions. There's one specific time where, because I was when I was working in the restaurant that we just talked about, it got to a point where I was totally fed up with that job in the end, and I kind of started to begin to see my worth in a very, very, very small way. So I did leave that job, and I got another job. Well, I was, for a short period of time, I was basically unemployed, and there was a point in time where, before I got this other job, which I guess we'll come to, which was a similar sort of job. It was another like dog's body job, as you put it. You came home once from, because you were teaching yoga. You were the manager of a yoga studio then, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I was just kind of, I think the way you'd put it is, I was just kind of moping around a bit, like not really doing anything. And so I had done bits and bobs of Uber Eats and Deliveroo in the past, not cheating on a motorbike. I did it on a push bike properly,
Yeah.
the hard graft. And then I'm not sure exactly what you said to me, but it was basically like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And I think, I was thinking, okay, yeah, what am I doing? And then I think you went out or something, and then you came back, and I was like, okay, I've got to do something. This is what I can do right now. So I got out there, and that was like one of those moments where could have went one of two ways. Like, if you came back and I was just still moping there, it would have been like, well, does he care? So that was the most I could do then, and I did. And there was times a little bit further on where I was doing that in the freezing cold, snowing, pissing it down with rain, freezing cold, just to make like a little bit of extra money. So
On
yeah,
your
but
bike,
on my
literally
bike, yeah,
cycling around.
in
If
Birmingham of all
anything,
places.
yeah, you are such a grafter. And when you put your mind to something, like something really switched in your head, then at that point, and I think one of the biggest turning points was when we found out we were expecting and I was pregnant, and I was like, I'm pregnant, like really nervous to tell you. And you're like, amazing. Like, I wasn't expecting that reaction, but that really switched a gear, and you were unstoppable. And I remember you phoning me when it was snowing. You were like, I'm heating my hands up in the dryer. I've made this much
The hand
money.
dryer in the toilet, yeah.
Yeah, because it was that cold. And I was like, come home. I've run you a hot bath. Like, you don't need to stay out anymore. Like, you were just so determined to do something. And which brings us on to the next level of like, what happened next after that? What was your first sort of step into the career that you're in now?
Yeah, well, I suppose it was a step into what could be considered like the corporate world, because I didn't do any corporate jobs at all up until that point. And as I said earlier, so here's the other thing as well. When you were pregnant with Lawrence, our first son, I decided to finish my degree. So
Yeah.
I kind of I kind of dropped out. I didn't even, if this is how lazy I was and how much of a loser I was. I didn't even formally drop out. I just kind of just whatever. I'm just not. But I kind of re-got on it and finished my final year. And I remember times when you were super pregnant, waking up really early in the morning with me, like, let's do your essay. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. So there's been it's not just me working hard. You've been there alongside me the whole time. So
Pushing you.
yeah, we've
I'm the
both been
pusher,
there,
the cheerleader.
dragging me and pushing me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so at that time, I was working. So I was working in a zero waste shop in Birmingham, which was again just a shop, just working around a shop. That aligned with our ethics pretty well at the time. And when Lawrence was born, I really started, because I'm sure men who are listening, it's very different for men and women when um when you're expecting, because the woman's experiencing the pregnancy the whole time, and I can obviously see that you're pregnant, but when the baby's born, it's like real on a complete other level. So when that happened, when Lawrence was born, I was like, right, again, something just switched. Right, I've got to take it up another level now. This ain't gonna cut it. So, with my psychology degree, because I wasn't going to keep studying, I needed like something right now. So one of the things I thought I could do was sales. So I applied for hundreds of different jobs, but one job that I got the interview for and subsequently got the job was I think the job title was a telesales executive for a company called Connects and this was in Birmingham still. But it was and we'll get into that. But it was the first job there to show up with like a suit and tie, and it was like that was a massive. It wasn't really any much more money. Like it wasn't much money at all. But that wasn't the point. It was the first step where I was like, right, I'm actually showing up. I have to be there 9 to 5. I think it was actually 9 till 6.
Yeah.
And it was just cold calling. It was awful. Calling people, hundreds of calls a day, getting rejected, trying to sell broadband. But again, that taught me a lot because I had to all of a sudden develop a backbone, face a lot of rejection. And that was hard, and showing up in a specific way like that. So that was my next job. Yeah,
Which is
interesting experience.
it was a needed step for you because when we first got together, you were terrified of the phone. If I was
Right.
like, "Oh, can you phone so and so to do this?" Or, "We need to sort out this bill. You need to phone these people because I'm so pregnant, I just can't do it." You were so scared and so afraid, you just couldn't do it. Whereas
Yeah.
taking that telesales job forced your hand in the right direction to build your confidence that you needed because you were doing it so much and so many times a day, then you didn't even think about it. It wasn't an issue for you anymore because you had to be pushed into that fear that you had. And it was legitimate because you really just hated phoning people and it was like a thing for quite a while.
Yeah.
And that completely changed your confidence, and having to wear a suit and get dressed every morning and go to more of like a formal atmosphere, even
Right.
though it wasn't like, your ultimate dream job, it gave you that confidence boost. And I saw a big change in you when you had to do that.
Yeah, it was massive actually. Looking back, especially more so, huge change. Um, from there, so I didn't actually work there for that long. I got another job um, at a place called Safe Fence. So this was just like similar kind of role, sales, but it was for like construction materials. And I worked there for quite a while. Worked there for a good 2 years, something like that. But that coincided with COVID happening. So then I actually got made, put on furlough, and then eventually got laid off, basically. And that was a very critical time, really, wasn't it? Because Lawrence was very young. We were, new parents. It was very, very hard. A lot to handle. As sure as any young parents, young parents have. Um, Not that this was ever an issue, but we weren't even really together that long, were we? Like it was a lot in such a short period of time, and that was a very tricky time. And then, to be honest, one of the best things that could have happened, obviously the world went a bit crazy, but was lockdown and furlough, because we really, we connected a lot of that time, spent a lot of time together with Lawrence as well, and I have very fond memories. Counterintuitively, there was a lot of awful things that happened, but I have quite a lot of fond memories of that time when we moved to Wolverhampton. We moved to a different place in Wolverhampton then, I believe, at the
Yeah.
time. And yeah, that was that was a real nice time, wasn't it? In a strange sort of way. Um,
Yeah. And I think for me, because I was a new mother, and I really suffered, and it wasn't diagnosed at all. No one, I was very good at hiding it, but I really suffered with postpartum depression, anxiety. It was so bad. Um, and nobody knew, like, apart from you. Um, but yeah, it was a really, really hard time. And I remember like writing you a letter, like, saying every detail that I felt, and I just didn't want to be there anymore. And thank God that you were furloughed and that you were there then. So you were away in the office all day, every day, and I was literally just on my own. I did go to some clubs and stuff, but when that happened and when lockdown happened, we really did connect as a family, and I really got that support that I needed. And I think you
Yeah.
also got to bond with Lawrence as well, because you were so afraid to like change his nappy, you were nervous to pick him up, whereas when you stopped working, I so desperately needed that help that it kind of like I had to let go of the control, and you had to step into that position as also, you know, that dad role that we needed that support. And it was a really hard time to make
Mm.
it through. But we got through it together. It really bonded us very closely as a family. And I think that also tied into, the next step of like, what can you do? Okay, so we want you to work from home. We want to be together as a family. What are our values as a family? What are we looking at? And we really developed this really great communication style of like, okay, what do we need? Where do we want to be? What's our ultimate goal? And where are we now? And what's the next steps? And that's where teaching from home came in. So you were like teaching English to Chinese children online and
Yeah.
doing Uber at the same time. And this was all at the same time synergistically when we were in the right place at the right time, heard the right conversation about something that could spark an interest in you that made you do a course that didn't work out but did, maybe share about that experience about the course. And that also
Yeah.
ties to diet as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that. So that's very interesting because, as you said, um, one of our goals was for me to, because I worked in retail again for a short period of time just to make more money, and then did bits of Uber, which again, obviously with Uber Eats and Deliveroo, you're out all day every day. It's hard graft. So I wanted to. We're talking about how we can make this work. I wanted to shift to working from home if possible. Didn't even know where to start. You know, this was before IT. This was before any concepts of a career out of it. So I started teaching online. There's different platforms where you can teach English online. I was rubbish at it, to be honest. I just have conversations with people. It's absolutely terrible. But it worked, and I worked from home. I remember waking up super early, like
Yeah.
to get like because it was international, so like teaching people all these crazy hours. And anyway, as we're in that you know, as we're in that mode, as you said, I heard about a online course teaching something called AWS. I had no idea about anything technology wise. I'd always been a bit techie, a bit of a nerd, but like never considered it as a career option or nothing like that. I'd never heard of AWS. And for those of you who don't know, what AWS is the cloud, essentially. It's a cloud platform, and to learn it, it's quite an in-demand skill. So I took a course basically that um, taught me all about AWS, and it was a starting point, because as I started to realize, it was, the course had a lot of benefits, but at the same time, if you just did the course, you wouldn't really get anywhere. You have to really go above and beyond, and practice, writing software and doing a lot of stuff to really, really building your knowledge. And I have fun. They're fun now, but they weren't fun at the
Mm.
time. Memories of driving around doing Uber Eats. And we had an old Peugeot 207, I think it was,
Yeah.
and we didn't even have an aux cable that you plug in your phone. So I just had my phone turned up really loud in the car, playing like AWS videos over and over and over and over again as I was driving around. Just because again, I latched onto a new. I was like, right, okay, kind of naively, to be honest, I'm putting all my eggs in this basket. I'm going to really try and make this work. And eventually we did. Eventually I did make it work, as we'll get on to. But you mentioned diet there, which is very interesting as well.
Yeah.
So we were vegan up until this entire point. But, and this isn't everyone's experience, but I'm starting to realize more so that eventually this pretty much does happen with everyone. Some kind of symptom happens with veganism. I was quite a happy vegan for about 5 years, I think. No issues. I was very skinny, but no issues, happy, energy, whatever. But then, as and when I started to use my brain a lot more, I remember saying to you, like, I just can't think properly. I had, it was brain fog, but I would just lose attention immediately. I just could not hold information in my brain. And you know, if you, let's say if you're at school and you're in a classroom and something's really boring, you just kind of zone out. It was like that, but I couldn't even help it. And I was like, something's wrong here. And I started craving eggs. I was like, Emily, I need to get some eggs. I need to try it, try some eggs. And you were very against it, weren't you?
Yeah, I found it so hard at first. I mean, the first time for me was during my first pregnancy where I was craving eggs and fish, but I ignored it because I was very set in the vegan ideology and animals, and it made me feel really icky, the idea of eating meat. I was a lifelong vegetarian pretty much, and then a 5-year vegan like Jack. And when you started eating eggs, I was like, oh, not in front of me, not in my house. And it was about halfway through my second pregnancy with our second son. And I remember wanting to raise our children as vegans as well. And thank you, God, I was breastfeeding still while being pregnant, while malnourishing myself. And it's only when our son started asking to eat eggs, and at first I was saying no to him, and then I saw the health benefits in you and how, you were like, I feel so much better now, I feel amazing. And I realized that, like, okay, why am I ignoring these cravings for my body? Like, I'm allowed to eat these foods when I'd been so stuck in this ideology in my head that like meat is bad, eggs are bad. So it really kind of messed with my mind. And then very slowly, after seeing how happy and healthy you were looking, I started eating eggs too, and then we started eating the fish, and we started eating the meat, and the more animal products we ate, and we gave our son, finally, he was blessed with some eggs. You can have some eggs, son. The better we felt and the healthier we felt. And that has been a never-ending journey since then to now we're a very protein-based family. We eat a lot of meat. Every meal is based around animal proteins. We're not afraid of animal fats. And that's where that's led us. But yeah, that was a big turnaround as well in our psychology as a couple together. I think our family were
Yeah.
like shocked.
Well, you would be, wouldn't you? We were the vegans,
Yeah.
and here's the thing as well, like, we thought we were doing the right thing. We genuinely were convinced
Yeah.
that veganism was healthy, ethical, all these moral, or, all these reasons why that you should be vegan, better for the planet, etc., etc. But there comes a point where it just, you know, it's unavoidable that you feel a bit rubbish. And as soon as I started eating those eggs, I remember it felt like my brain turned on.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can't really look back then. You start to think, okay, well, what about meat? What about fish? What about this? And then I remember the first steak we ate. It sounds so crazy now. I eat steaks
Yeah.
all the time now. But
That's
like,
right.
it's, you know, in my opinion anyway, humans are, how cats are obligate carnivores. I would say we're obligate omnivores, to be honest. I think that's just the way it is, based on our experience anyway. Yeah, things started to change then, and I actually could use my brain a bit more. I started to be able to retain more information, and then it just went up and up and up then. And then I've been working in this industry for quite a while now, loving it, really, really enjoying it. I feel like my intellectual side is satisfied because I've always been nerdy, to be honest. And I feel very grateful that I can indulge in that uh, intellectual side of things, and I get paid to do so. I'm very, very grateful. I really do enjoy my work. Probably a bit too much. I bang on about it quite a lot, don't I? So you tell me to shut up sometimes. But seriously, I do, you know, who knows what would have happened if I didn't do that course? Maybe I would have never discovered it. Maybe I would eventually. Who knows? But it's been a huge change in my life, and it's led to a lot of good things. So I'm very, very grateful. I'm very happy for it. The things you ever hear sometimes, how they change your life. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot to that, being in the right place at the right time and listening to the right conversation, but also being open to it. Because some people, I think a lot of people have a tendency to resist change, and they're so afraid of change. And we've definitely been there, and I still do that in some ways now. I'm not perfect, but change happens anyway, and you kind of have to go with it. You have to embrace the change, or it happens to you and you resist against it, and it's a far more treacherous path to go on if there's hesitancy and resistancy with that change. And I think sharing the journey of also changing our mindset about nutrition is a testament that you can change and you can grow and evolve together as a couple. You just both have to be willing to talk about it, to go through the painful process of change. Because at first I was so resistant to some of especially the food changes that you made. And then when I went with it, it actually worked out for the better. And at first, when we first got together, you were a bit resistant on okay, I'm with a very ambitious, fiery girl here. It could have made or broke us. And
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that many couples now, they face adversity as you do in life, shit happens, but they break down and they cannot face that challenge together. And I think what I love about our relationship is our ability to communicate really well and to face adversity together and to go through that together. What would you say on that for the men on this podcast?
Yeah. Well, I think that's very, very important what you just said. What I would say is that there's no time in your relationship where it doesn't matter. And let me explain what I mean by that. It's in all the tiniest interactions where if there's a disagreement, you've got to address it immediately. Even think of the most stupid example, like like something really, really, really minor. That can't linger at all. It can't, because if there's any room for any kind of holding back, I'm not, I don't want to say something in case I upset you, or, you know, anything like that, that builds and builds and snowballs. And before you know it, there's a massive brick wall between the both of you. And it's better to have an uncomfortable, it's better to have a relatively uncomfortable conversation now. Otherwise, you're going to have an extremely uncomfortable conversation later when all this shit is built up. And a lot of the time, if there ever comes a time where we feel very slightly disconnected, it's because of that. It's just because we've not synced up properly, and there's just a few things and it's not even anything massive. It's just day-to-day stuff. It's just daily life. And the advice I'd give is you've got to be the one, or at least you've got to count on yourself as the man to be the one to initiate those conversations, because that's one of the things that you're called to do, is to say, there's an issue here, let's deal with it. And that's the right thing to do. And quite frankly as well, you'll be more respected as well. Like your wife will respect you a lot better, because you're respecting yourself, you're standing up for yourself, and you're putting your best foot forward. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. That saying comes to mind that everyone is centuries old and everyone's so happy wife, happy life. And I don't think that means doing every single thing at your wife's beck and call. I don't
No.
think it means being a people pleaser. I think it means being your authentic self, standing true to what you believe in as a man, holding your own, having your own opinion, not just saying, yes, love, like actually having your own thoughts and contributing equally to the relationship. And at the same time, giving your wife grace and empathy, because she's a woman, and we all know that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And a perfect example that I would actually like to share is literally this evening's conversation. We are walking down, getting some steps in, walking the boys to sleep in the buggy, and I am in a foul mood. I'm during my period, I'm feeling the heat rising, the full inner sassiness is coming out, and I'm taking it all out on Jack. Everything is coming out. And I don't even think about what I'm saying. It's all just coming out like word vomit, and I cannot stop myself. I'm just angry at everything. And everything that he's ever done to piss me off comes out in this conversation. And the best thing that Jack has learned to do when I'm like that, because I do get like that on a monthly basis, unfortunately, I'm very hormonal, very emotional, and very sassy, is that you listen to me, and you literally just listen to what I've got to say. You hear me out without reacting, without taking anything that I say personally, and without thinking of a response. You're literally just giving me the space. You're holding that space for me to talk and share all of the shit, the crazy shit that's in my mind, that's brewing, that I need to get out. Because as women, we need to talk and just share our feelings. And after that, I'm like, well, what do you think about that? And your hesitancy and pause, and you reply in a very calm way, which enables me to also calm down too, which that was just beautifully done by you this evening. Whereas if you would have reacted in a, yeah, in an angry way, you can't combat anger with anger. And likewise, there's times when you're very angry, you're a fiery ginger, and I'm like, here's a coffee. Go and take 5 minutes to yourself. Like, you have to be able to read and understand your partner's needs. So how did you know that was the best way to be in that situation with me?
To start off with, I didn't. But it takes, again, it's this openness, it's this willingness to improve together. Because take this specific example. I don't want to be arguing with you all the time. Like, I don't want to be, I don't want us to be at each other's throats. I don't want this to be this tension to exist, because we've chosen to spend our life together. We've chosen that, and we've chosen that in the past, and we choose that every single day. So if we're going to spend our life together, we're going to make it as wonderful as possible, and we're going to do it together and do it properly, because we're committed. For really, there's no plan B. That's how I see it, and I know you see it the same way. Divorce and separation, it doesn't even enter into the conversation, because we've chosen to remain committed to each other, and because of that, it actually really, really matters, all these things. So again, I didn't know that to start off with, but I've learned over time that's the best thing to do. And that's just one of many examples of, we understand. I think I understand you better than you understand yourself, and I think you understand me better than I understand myself sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
if I've not had much sleep, or if I'm hungry, you'll interject in a very, particularly when I've not eaten, if I'm very hungry or something, you'll just be like, right, Jack, you need to eat. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I just need to do this or whatever. And then, you just know how to deal with me, basically. I don't mean deal with you in a bad way. I don't have to deal with you. It's not like that. Like, you know what to do to help. So it just takes time, and we're all our own individual people with our own weird little quirks, and you've got to learn to embrace the quirks of your partner if you are truly committed to one another, which we are. So yeah, you have to learn these things.
I definitely agree with that, with that we're all individual and we're all different. And as you said it came to my head. I was literally just thinking that as well. So yeah, we are all different, and we all have different ways of responding to different situations. Like, me and Jack are so similar in our values, but we're so different personality wise. Like, you're so relaxed and so laid back, and
Yeah.
not laid back as in lazy, but like you deal with stress in the best possible way. I don't ever really see you stressed, and you handle it very well. You're very calm. Whereas I'm the complete opposite of that. I am so excitable and like crazy and have this like energy. And then at the same time, I'm really moody and like I need space for myself. And like it's balancing each other out and
Yeah.
understanding what that person needs. So I can't love you in the way that I need to be loved because it's very different. And you can't love me in the way that you need to be loved because I'm like a gifts kind of girl. I love being spoiled, whereas you're an acts of service and kindness and words of affirmation kind of guy. And you love it
Yeah.
when I'm like, you did a great job, honey, or like I bought you a coffee. Whereas like if you bring me a present, I'm like, oh, he loves me, which is so interesting how we all have this different way of being appreciated and being loved.
Mm. Yeah. And again, that's something you have to learn as well. You learn about yourself even, how do you best feel appreciated? Because you want to both feel like you're in this journey together. And it's the same with every kind of relationship. If it's a business relationship or a friendship even, you want to feel like you're both pulling your own weight. And how do you show that to your partner? Well, everyone is, again, you don't even think that really, but yeah, everyone shows it in, and everyone needs it in very different ways. And you have to learn these things and be receptive to these things. And there's times where we get very busy and we don't do these things. But it's always bringing it back to this is the I don't know. This is one of the things that we can do every single day that brings us. I like again when you bring me a coffee, like just little things like that. That's you know a relationship and a life spent together. If we're blessed to be married for 60 years or something like that, you know if we grow old together, which I really hope we do, that amount of time is 70 years, whatever it is. It's just a series of normal days over and over and over again. It's just every single day stacked up. So every single day counts, and every single, your life is made of these little moments that happen every single day. And that's the things that matter really, is the small things in life. When we wake up, this is quite funny actually, when we wake up early in the morning, because we tend to wake up at 5, because we get up and plunge before the kids and get to spend some time together. We have a kind of unwritten agreement that we don't really talk for the first 5-10 minutes. We just kind of look at each other like, "Are you all right?" "Yeah, yeah, I'm all right." And just while we just try not to convince each other to go back to bed. It's not always like that, but it's quite funny. All these things that we do every day.
It is. It's like an unspoken rule.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to speak like the
No.
first 10 minutes because we literally will convince each other to go back to sleep, which we always feel worse for in the end. Like, I never regret getting up with you and doing a cold
No.
plunge first thing in the morning. I want to talk about what it means to have that spark in a relationship, because so many relationships break up because they use the excuse of we just lost the spark. And I'm of the opinion of you have to create that fucking spark yourself. You are the spark, and it's two people equally contributing to a relationship through the highs and the lows that you go through together. Whereas if you're not together, very quickly you grow apart.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely tragic. Nowadays, it happens so often. And what people don't I think people do realize this to some extent, but if there's two adults and they break up, that's sad. That is sad enough, obviously, because particularly if you had an idea where you did want to spend your life with this person and for whatever reason it breaks down, that's tragic. But the worst is when children are involved.
Oh, yeah.
And we both come from broken homes. It puts a whole stink on a child's experience of the world, unfortunately. So these things are incredibly serious, especially if you have children, because it can, in some instances, it can really, really affect people, particularly young children. I think it's very, very, very bad, and people don't talk about that with divorces and with breakups. But I think, in a way, the spark is something to pay attention to. But I think if you're focusing on that, you've kind of missed the point, because there will be days where there isn't a spark, where I've got loads of work to do, the kids have been up all night, you're pissed off for XYZ reason. Layla and Rosie, which are animals, by the way, have pissed on the floor.
All the time.
Those days, there's no spark. There's no spark. What spark in those days? But it's all about two things: getting it back on track, so we don't forget that at the end of it all, we're just trying our best for each other, and we come back to that. And secondly, there's an unwavering commitment that, like, it's cheesy, but through sickness and health, the good days, the bad days, fuck the spark. It doesn't matter. Like, that's not about. You're missing the point. You focus on the wrong thing. If you make a commitment to one another, that's it, isn't it? And as you said, you have to create that spark. There's something that drew you together in the first place, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even talked when I approached you in the vegan. We didn't even talk about this when I first spoke to you. I was working in this restaurant. I came up to you and just started chatting to you and gave you some vegan chocolate. That I wouldn't eat vegan chocolate nowadays. It was probably disgusting, but like that enticed you at the time.
By the way, for all our listeners, I was getting quite annoyed because he kept talking to me, and I was like, "Who is this guy?"
Look at us now.
And look at us now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that's it. People get so attached to this romantic idea of the hearts and the roses, and I do love that, and I do sometimes have to remind you. I haven't had any romance. I need some romance. But it isn't all that. It is like when you've got children, your kid has just been sick all over the floor and all over themselves and all over the bed, and you've got to clean it up. Your partner's snoring. They didn't wake up for the third time in a row. And you're going to be bitter and hating on them. But the next day, it doesn't matter. Okay, honey, Lawrence was sick during the night. And then Jack would say, "It's okay, you go and take some time to yourself. I'll wash the bed sheets." So it's about that compromise and understanding what your partner's been through. It's hard for them.
Yeah.
And you're going through something hard too, but you're in it together. And I want to bring it back to, again, the conversation we had this evening that completely turned it around was gratitude. It was just coming back to, what do we have that we can be grateful for? What have we achieved this year? What have we achieved since we've been together? Just to keep it very short, because it's a very long story, which we will share one day. But, we went from being on food vouchers, literally having no money, crying because we couldn't pay the rent, to now we're homeowners and we have big plans for the future, when we can go on nice holidays. And to go through all that together, we lived in a mouse-ridden house, a flea-ridden house. We've literally been through so much crap, but we didn't let that separate us. There were times when we were like, "This is really fucking hard right now. I'm really struggling." There were times when I said openly to you, it would be so much easier on my own to get a divorce, and he was like, "Would it though? Would this be easier on your own without me?" And think of all the nice things that we've got together. And you will go through so much crap, because it just happens. It does. Life is not always going to be pristine and perfect and beautiful. But it's how you come together with gratitude for the things that you do have. Like, okay, we have nice clean clothes, we have food on our table, a roof over our head. We went on holiday this year. We've achieved some really great things together. I think that's what it comes back to, is being grateful for the things that your partner does do. Because if you're anything like me with the women listening to this podcast, especially when I'm during my period, I can get very stuck on all the negative things, and I can nitpick every single negative thing that Jack has ever done to me. Even
Mhm.
5 years ago, I'm like, "But you did this on this day, and then
Past
you did that."
lives,
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
everything. And it comes back to, okay, they're not all bad though. What else? What does he do that's good? I'm like, okay, well, he does this, and oh no, he does that too. And then before you know it, you've got a whole list of all the good things that your partner does. So I really think gratitude ties it together nicely and is very
Yeah.
important to practice.
Gratitude, I'm coining a phrase now. Gratitude is it's the antithesis, it's the enemy of resentment, isn't
Mm,
it? Because imagine if you have no gratitude and you let that resentment build
yeah.
and build and build, that drives people apart. And then I don't believe it's uh, well, I don't believe it's ever completely unreconcilable. Let's say if people are really, really close to getting divorced, there probably is something that can get it back together. But there sometimes comes a point where it's the gap is so wide, the wall is so high that it's just effectively impossible. And then you just break up. And then it does become easier to break up then, which is so tragic. It really is sad. And, you know, I feel like when people commit to each other nowadays, they kind of always have like an exit clause in the back of their
Mm.
head where they just think, oh, I can just give up. Whereas that's never existed throughout all of human history. People didn't think that way, and I'm glad we do think that way. That there's no plan B. This is what we are doing. This is the enterprise that we're building together. Children help with that. This is our legacy. This is something that we're doing together, and there's nothing that will get in the way of that. Doesn't matter what happens. We're doing it for the rest of our lives. It's that simple.
I think the only exception to that rule is obviously if it's an abusive relationship and there's like,
Yeah,
serious domestic abuse, emotional abuse, things like that.
of
That is
course. Yeah.
inexcusable behaviour, and obviously get out of that situation, because some of our listeners might have been through things like that. And don't stay in it just for the children in that sense, because if you're not safe, get out, get yourself safe, get your family safe. But in the
Yeah.
sense of, if you're in a an average relationship and it's mediocre, is there something that you can save there? What drew you to that person originally? Because I do think, apart from those exemptions, that people do give up quite easily nowadays, and they don't have that fight mentality. People are quite like snowflakes, and they break easily. I think the highest statistic for divorce is money issues, and we've definitely been through a lot of money issues, but we've communicated about it, and we continue to communicate about it so we can work it out together. I think it's when you're sweeping things under the carpet and not talking about it and hiding things from your partner, that is just, it's going to break down because there's no trust there.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I said at the beginning, isn't it? It's like it's all these tiny moments and interactions. They become a much bigger thing over time.
Yeah.
So there's just the zero tolerance for it. And yeah, of course, maybe all relationships shouldn't be saved. Of course, yeah,
Mm.
there's some very, very terrible relationships that people have. But yeah, this is if you have a conscious relationship and you want to actually build something, and there's no good reason. It's just you're just falling out of love, which is very, very tragic. Um, yeah, it's very, very tragic, particularly for the children. Um, but yeah,
I think the way to keep it together is communication. Definitely. Like you said, we both come from sort of broken homes, and without going into that too much, like, that is very hard on the children. It's hard on the parents, but it's very hard on the children, because you do feel like the idea of family that you had and that you dreamt of has completely been teared apart and taken from you. And to come from that, both of us, and consciously, communicate, okay, this is what we went through as children, we don't want this to happen. I remember speaking to my mum and being like, you know, what did you learn from that? And she was like, well, communicate. Communication is key. And that's also what my dad says as well. And unfortunately, they didn't get that in their marriage. So they both figured it out on their own. But that is something that I went into our relationship saying from the very start. We need to communicate. We need to be brutally honest with each other, even if it is painful and embarrassing or really hard to talk about, hard to say. You need that brutal honesty and that communication with your life partner for the sake of your relationship. And if you have children, you are their role model for their relationship. So they're going to grow
Hmm.
up being like, oh, that's how my relationship should be. And, you know, unfortunately, before I met you, I did have to kiss a lot of frogs, let's say, to find my Prince Charming. And there you are. But yeah, I really was very anti-marriage, anti-relationship. I didn't see the point in it because I didn't have that solid foundation of what does it mean to have a good relationship?
Yeah, it's I mean, I didn't even consider it really, to be honest. I think that happens a lot nowadays where people, probably our generation and maybe a bit older and definitely younger, when divorce started to get much more popular. And there's reasons why, again, there's reasons why people should get divorced and stuff, but there's no doubt that it's become extremely permissive nowadays. What people call no fault divorce, where people can just, oh, I'm fed up now, bye, just walk off. That's become extremely common. And as a result of that, there's always the children get stuck in the middle of it. But it's very interesting because I would say that our marriage hasn't succeeded so far in spite of our upbringing. It's kind of succeeded because of our upbringing, because we've learned lessons. It can kind of go one of two ways. I see a lot of people, and it's almost like, I don't think they'd ever say this out loud, but people our age and maybe a bit younger, I feel like they've just shut themselves off the idea of ever having a family because they're so traumatized by it. So they get a dog instead, which is fine, sure, get a dog, whatever. But like, the trauma goes so deep that, you know what I mean? Like, they won't even entertain the concept of having a family. There's always other reasons why they wouldn't have a family, but it's basically because they're so traumatized by their own upbringing that it's not even that they think that they're going to do that to their children. I don't think it's that. It's just so traumatic. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can relate to that as well in terms of like, you know, our own childhood. Like our parents definitely tried their best with the resources that they had, but it wasn't like, you know, the most traditional balanced upbringing that we could have had where there was equal parties playing, like, you know,
Yeah.
equal parents and they set the rules and you had discipline and structure. And I think that does really impact you as a, you know, child, as an adult, how you were raised. If you didn't have those boundaries or if you had too many boundaries, it's a very fine balance. I just really hope that we don't fuck up our kids.
We probably have done in many
Yeah.
ways already, but I mean, I think everyone does a little bit, don't they? But um, yeah, what can we do? They're going to inherit some baggage from us. Let's hope that's minimal. And I think that's a thing, right? That it's being conscious about it. Like,
Yeah.
when we parent our children, it's an active thing. It's not passive. They don't just live with us and things just happen. We try to actively parent them. We try to talk about what we're doing and how we do it, why we do it. There's reasons behind why we do certain things. And we talk about it. It's being deliberate. It's the same with our relationship.
Yeah.
That's half the struggle, I think. It's just being deliberate. You know, not just letting things happen to you, as you said earlier. You've got to be the active participant in these, in your life and in these interactions.
Yeah, and actively, consciously choose, okay, how do you want to be? What's your ideal relationship look like? If you have children, what does your ideal family situation look like? And then how can you create that? How can you make that happen? And when I first became pregnant, I became obsessed with motherhood, with different parenting styles, with like how you're going to raise the baby, you're going to do cloth nappies, you're going to baby wear, co-sleep breastfeeding, everything. I was obsessed with it. And I think I kind of led that into our relationship and family dynamic where, you know, what's our family culture like? And we actively sit down and talk about this and how do we want to raise our children? What values do we want to instill in them? And we actually sit there, have a coffee and have a conversation about it. And I urge you, as your parents, do it consciously, have a chat. How do you want to raise your child? What experiences do you want to have as a family? What kind of family dynamic do you want to have? Like for us, a big thing this year especially has been like, we want to be known as the fit family. We want to do
Yeah.
lots of fitness stuff. And that's really encompassed into our everyday being, to the point where, like in my studio here, I've got some weights, I've got some like, 1 kilogram dumbbells that the boys just come in and they pick up and they're like, Mummy, Daddy, I'm exercising. And they literally just come and do it on their own back because it's that much a part of our life now. And in terms of a relationship, what do you want that to look like? What's important to you? What do you value together? Like for us, we seem to have a lot of deep conversations. That's something we value. I want to tie this back to the start of the conversation where I said about you've been on the biggest glow up journey, because we have been together really in terms of what we eat, in our spirituality. We are both practicing Christian Roman Catholics now,
Yeah.
which that is also a part of our family culture. And we both really need to exercise daily, that's something that was brought into our relationship from me, I think, more so. You were this
Yeah.
skinny little weedy guy when we first got together, to now you can lift me above your head, chuck me around. It's really nice to see the confidence that has come out in our relationship and from you as a man. And I have to say that I always tell you now how safe I feel with you now, and how I feel like you've got my back. I feel like you could protect me, which is a big thing in a relationship for a woman, to be able to feel safe.
It's if I was to give advice to a man, it doesn't. This isn't even about relationships necessarily, but it does apply in relationships. This is just how to ensure that you can succeed in that way. I think there's two things. One of them is you always have to be honest. Always, you always have to be honest. Sometimes that's very hard to do. I mean, in the very small things as well. Honest with yourself, honest
Yeah.
with others. Because if you are transparent, because being honest is being transparent, and being transparent means you can see what's going on. And only when you can be transparent with yourself and see what areas of your life you need to improve on, only then can you actually make changes. So it's radical transparency and radical ownership over your life. As a man, nothing should ever be anyone else's fault. The book always ends with you. You should always be leaving every interaction thinking about what you could have done better. You know, it's on you. Everything's on you. The weight of the world should be on your shoulders, and you should be able to support that. That should be everything. Should end with you. The book stops with you as a man. You should be the person who's responsible. Radical responsibility, radical self-ownership, radical accountability. That's I think is incredibly important, because everything stems from there. If you want to get fitter, if you want to change your career, if you want to improve an aspect of your life, it all starts with that. The second one is more practical advice. Would be, I recommend every man, really from when you're a kid, to be honest, but most people don't get this experience, should do some kind of martial arts. I'm not saying this as I'm a black belt or nothing like that. I'm really, really not. But I've started relatively recently. But I did do jiu-jitsu when I was a kid, to be fair. But I've started doing mixed martial arts this year, and what that can provide you as a man, it teaches you a lot about yourself. It's hard. It can be scary. But at the same time, it's a very appropriate thing to do as a man, because it can strengthen all these aspects of your life. It teaches you to be disciplined. I think, even practically speaking, you should be able to defend yourself as well. I would never, I would never. I'm not the kind of person to go out looking for a fight. I don't think you should be. That's not what we're called to do, especially as Christians. But you should be able to be dangerous if you're required to do so. If there's someone who needed defending, or if there's a situation where you're the person who has to act, you should be able to act. Imagine, God forbid, there was some awful tragedy that you were caught up in the middle of, and because you were too fat, or because you, I don't know, couldn't run away to save your life, something bad happened because of you. How could you live with yourself? How could that happen? And that's obviously a very extreme example, but it's also very true in the in the kind of deeper sense of the word. So, you should be. This I don't actually know who said this, but you should be it's better to be a warrior in a garden than it is to be a gardener in a war. That's very important. And, Jesus even said, the meek shall inherit the earth. What he meant by that, it wasn't meek. It's very poorly translated. People think of meek like, oh, this meek kind of, shy person. It doesn't mean that at all. What meek actually means is you should wield a sword. Sorry, you should be dangerous, but you should conceal that danger. You should only use it when it's appropriate. So you should be, have the ability to be dangerous, but only use it when appropriate. That's what that means. And you will inherit the earth. Simple as that.
Yeah, I love that quote. Okay, so I think we'll wrap up, and I'm going to ask you some of these quick fire questions.
I'm ready.
Oh, he's ready. Here we go. Okay, so do you have any rituals that you do daily?
Every day I plunge with my beautiful wife. You look really beautiful, by the way.
No, I love
Plunge
you
with
so
you.
much.
I love you too. Recently, what I've started doing as well is, it's very easy to sit there scrolling on your phone. I have a few apps which I do instead. I'm not perfect, but Duolingo is one. If you want to learn a language, I've got Duolingo. I've got one called Mimo for coding, and I've got another one called Simply Learn, I think it's called, another coding one. I do little habits like that to learn stuff every day. So yeah, those are some daily habits that I do. And exercise is big.
Yes, I love our daily cold plunges in the morning. It just like brings a bit of peace. We never actually want to do it, but then we always feel awesome after.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah. Describe what wellness means to you.
That's a great question. I think what wellness means to me is being able to do whatever I want. I don't mean that in a hedonistic sense, but what I mean is, for example, if I want to, uh, if I want to run 10 miles, I can do that. If I want to be able to, you know, play with my kids and not be impeded by my health, or by, I'm way too busy so I can't spend time with my family or whatever. Wellness for me means having the choice to be able to do what is best for me. You set up your life in a way that you're healthy, you've got the energy, you've got the time to be able to do the things you want to do. Not in a hedonistic sense. Again, it's more about you've got everything in balance, and you're fit and healthy enough to be able to do things. Like I cycled to London recently, because I wanted to. That's, for me, that's wellness, is being able to do things you really want to do. Yeah.
Oh, I really love that. And that literally does encompass the way that we live as well. Like, you're a very active dad, always playing rough and tumble. We call it attacking games with the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of fun as a family. So I think
Oh,
health
we do.
and vitality is very important in terms of that, because your children literally become mini versions of you. So yeah, it's really, really important. Is there a message that you would like to send out to our listeners today? Maybe you could aim at the parents, or especially the dads or the men who listen.
To the dads, I suppose this applies to the mums as well. Your children just want to spend time with you. They, take extra time today or tonight, the next day, whenever you're listening to this. Just spend an extra 5 minutes with your kid. Just give them an extra cuddle. Just give them an extra bit of love, because what we're learning now is our kids are growing up so quickly. It's just shooting by. Put your children and put your family first and foremost. Take a bit of extra time to give them an extra cuddle in the morning before you either send to school or whatever you do. So, yeah, that'd be my bit of advice. Nothing too groundbreaking. It's true,
No, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure. I'll be right back. Right, 1 second. Give me a second. Okay, I'll be right.
There he is. I love you.
Love you too.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, thank you for coming on my podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I'm very honoured.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being my husband.
Pleasure.
And to all our listeners, make sure you tune in next week for the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.